you are someone who has ever faced a life-threatening health scare, especially during COVID, and you were blessed with another chance at life, this conversation's for you. Because sometimes those moments don't just test us, they transform us. Today, I am sitting down with someone I deeply admire, a man of God, a husband, a leader in real estate, and someone I am proud to call a friend, Carlton Bell. And this isn't just a conversation about business. This is about faith, about resilience, about family, and who you have to become when life forces you to see things differently. Carlton has spent over 25 years in real estate. He has spoken on Tom Ferry stages, pouring into agents and dropping powerful nuggets, I might say, that have helped so many people grow. He's certified in AI and is constantly pushing the needle forward, helping professionals evolve and stay ahead. But what makes this conversation different is not just what he's built, it's what he's been through. Carlton, welcome. I'm really grateful to have you here.
I am excited to be here, Jessica. You have
Yes.
no idea. So excited. So excited.
Well, you know that before we get into business, I want to start with you as a person, okay?
Okay. Okay.
Who are you at your core, beyond everything that you've built? And how did growing up in Virginia shape the man that you are today?
Well, I would say one, that's a great question. Okay. Absolutely great question. I would say at my core, beyond the titles and the credentials, I'm really a builder. I'm really a designer. I'm really a man that is really at his true core, built in the image of God. I'm actually a man that is really built around structure and stewardship and systems. I'm not just about strategy, you know. I would say that my purpose is rooted in who I am as a man of God, a father, a husband, you know, and that's pretty much it. That's who I am in essence. It took me a minute to discover who I am as a man,
Yes.
but I think that's a great question. But that's who I am. I'm a man of God at my core. I'm a man that is strictly built around faith, family, service, and building upon my legacy. How did growing up in Newport News, Virginia, how did that help shape me into the man that I am today? I would probably say that it's where my roots are formed. It's my foundation, Jessica.
Yeah.
It's where I've learned integrity and honesty, the meaning of hard work. It's where commitment comes from for me. It's dedication to my family because my family is so close knitted. I always tell people that Newport News has always been a small city with a big city feel.
Mm.
I've always compared it to New York and their five barrels and growing up in the Tidewater Newport News area, it's just like that. It's like we're separated by water, just like New York, but we don't have the big buildings,
Mm.
and we don't stay open 24 hours a day.
Right.
If you don't get it by 12 o'clock, then you're not gonna get it. So but that's who it is. I mean, it taught me how to hustle. It taught me how to get out and grind. It taught me everything it's who I am. It's in my walk, it's in my attitude, it's in my disposition, it's in my personality.
I love it.
That's how Newport News has shaped and formed me. I am proud to say that I'm from that place.
I love it. I love it. Let's get into your journey, sir. You've been in real estate for over 25 years in the
Hmm.
DC market.
Yep.
That kind of longevity is rare. What do
Hmm.
you believe has been the key to not just surviving in this market, but staying relevant and growing over time?
Well, I think that's another great question. It's a decision that you have to make every single day. The key to, I believe, staying relevant, has been a commitment to never wanting to stop being a student
Mm.
of the game. You have to be able to operate in your craft on a consistent basis, because as your longevity extends, there's always people coming up behind you. You
Have to
know, so
evolve.
so you have to stay relevant. It's the commitment to every designation, every certification, every new skill, including the transition now of the whole AI movement that's going on right now.
Yes.
It reflects pretty much the same principle that I implemented on day one.
Mm.
You know, don't let your competition outwork you. Stay relevant, stay knowledgeable. I always wanted to be the individual in the room that didn't have all the answers, but had the answers.
Got it.
And
Got
I
it.
think that does it. It's not motivation. It's not market conditions. It's not luck. It's basically structured around who
Yes.
you are as a professional, and that's how you last in this industry.
Well, what do you see agents today missing that you learned early on in the business?
Well, I think what the agents are missing today is they're looking for the next shiny tool instead of building the infrastructure that creates consistent results in their business. I learned early on that structure determines performance. A lot of them are lacking structure. We see it every day in our profession and in our craft and what it is that we do. You being a broker owner, having the company and everything, and having those agents, you know exactly what it is that I'm talking about.
Yes.
So it's like I said before, they rely on motivation instead of mental toughness. They rely on market conditions instead of skill set. They rely on the luck of the draw instead of rolling up their sleeves and effectively communicating. So that's the difference that I see.
Yes. Well, I'm going to shift this a little bit. I'm going to talk
Mm-hmm.
about your health scare.
Oh Lord.
I want to go deeper into this. This really matters, okay? During COVID, and I know this well, I went through this with my mom.
Okay.
So you experienced a very serious health scare. Can
Mm-hmm.
you take us back to that moment and what happened?
Well, yes. That's a very sensitive and personal topic for me, because it really transformed how I am today and who I am today. Because during that particular time, I was trying to be super careful
Mm.
how I moved, who I interacted with, but still wanting to have that freedom and liberty to come and go and do things. And I can recall exactly when it happened and where I was when it happened. And when I got sick, I think the thing that really troubled me the most was I couldn't believe that it was happening to me.
Mm.
And then the rapid decline of it, because I was down with COVID before there was a vaccine, when people were going to the hospitals and they were getting on the ventilators and they weren't coming out of
Yes.
the hospital, you
What was
know.
going through your
So
mind with all
that
of this happening around you?
literally, I had to stop watching the television,
Yes.
because the television, everything was about death on the television. So, you know, having COVID, being the condition that I was in, me and my wife made a decision that we weren't going to the hospital. We were going to sit right here in this house. I was going to isolate. I was going to go upstairs. They were going to close the doors, and I was going to be up there, and we were going to make it through. And whatever the outcome was going to be, that was going to be the outcome. What we did not anticipate was it being as severe as it was. I can say to you and your listeners, when you have two near death experiences in a 3-year time frame, it changes every single thing about you. It changes your attention to detail. It changes your outlook on life. It changes your relationship with your spouse. It changes how you view your children. It changes every single thing. And when prior to that, I had been attending these men study sessions and writing down these scripture memory verses to just commit to memory and things of that nature. And I didn't know that at that time, when I was writing them down, what God was orchestrating for me was for me to be able to lean on those scriptures at
Oof.
that particular time. So, when you are running a fever of 105, 106, degrees, and you have no appetite, and you are isolated in a room by yourself. For our spiritually inclined listeners, they can understand this. That's when you're more subjected to being under attack by the enemy, because your mind starts to drift, you know. And I didn't know what to do. I started having conversations with my wife in regards to final arrangements. And, I started thinking about, my daughters, and if I'm going to be able to walk them down the aisle. And, you really start to think about, what have I been doing with my life this entire time? Have
Yes.
I properly planned? Do I have things in place? And I realized that I really didn't. I realized that I really didn't. So, so, I tell people this testimony of mine all the time. I got sick with COVID. I battled through that. My wife nursed me back to health. And then we went to Cancun, and I got sick with COVID again.
No.
As soon as I got well, we left the country. About a year or so later, I got COVID again. And when I come back this time, they said, "Well, you have chronic kidney disease." So we were trying to figure out what it came from. It came from the COVID. So so my kidney function started to fail tremendously. So we were trying all of these holistic remedies and things of that nature. And I kept saying to myself, and saying to my wife, that I know God has a plan. God has a plan. God has a plan. I know He has a plan. I know this is it. This can't be it. So I had a doctor's appointment with my kidney doctor, and that was on January 21st, 2023. And I couldn't get out of the house because I kept throwing up, and I was losing this weight rapidly. So when I finally got it together, and we got to the doctor's office, they took one look at me and sent me to the emergency room. So my kidney function had really dropped all the way down to less than 1%. So it was sitting in between zero functionality and one.
Oh my God.
So what the doctor said to us at that particular time, this was on a Friday. He said, if you hadn't come in here today, they would have carried you out of here in a body bag on Sunday. You
Oh
know.
wow.
So they did emergency dialysis treatment. So now I want your listeners to really hear this. You're talking about a person who has been completely athletic his entire life, never really ever been sick, no broken bones or anything of that nature, but let himself go, gained all this weight and all of that because it was all about me chasing the dollar, trying to make money, looking for more status quo than being locked into what was really important, which was my temple, my relationship, my alignment with God, and then my marriage and my children, right? So I had stuff completely out of order. So they have this surgery, and I get this emergency dialysis treatment, and I got this catheter in my chest. So I'm in the hospital for a couple of days, and now here comes the enemy a second time. And I'm isolated in this hospital room by myself. And I always say this, that a man can't grow himself, know himself by himself.
Mm.
When you are by yourself, you are more subject to being under attack. Okay. And I called my wife for the second time. Okay, this time we really need to lock in these arrangements because I don't think I'm coming out of here.
Oh my goodness.
So I get out of there, and I said to God, if I'm going to die today, let me go home and die in my bed, in
Mm.
my house. So, Jessica, the within probably 30 or 40 minutes after that, the nurse comes in and says, Mr. Bell, we're going to discharge you today. And I was like, whoa, wait, wait a minute. She's like, we're going to discharge you today. I was like, okay, cool. So I come home and I sleep for about a day and a half, and then we go meet with this transplant doctor. So they have to find a kidney transplant. I mean a dialysis center for me. So I'm on dialysis and I'm still trying to work while on dialysis, because my income has been affected for a whole year. And a lot of people don't understand, but when you can see the hand of God move on your life, it's transforming. And I've seen that on several different occasions, but never really paid any attention to it. So this time I'm really listening to
Yes.
what's going on because all of this happened right after the summit in August of 2022. So I speak on stage. I think things are really getting ready to kick off for me. I think I'm getting ready to have this, my career is going to go in a whole nother direction. And boom, I get sick. So we're sitting with this nurse and I'm listening to what she's saying. We're thinking home treatment and all of this. She's saying, no, you need to go to a center, yada, yada, yada. Um, and I hear you're going to have a transplant in 6 months. And then I hear it again. You're going to have a transplant in 6 months. So I look at my wife. I said, did she just say that I'm going to have a transplant in 6 months? She said, no, she didn't say that. And then the nurse says, well, you can anticipate being on dialysis anywhere between 7 to maybe 10 years or longer. That's just the way it is. And I said to her, no, that's not what God said. I know he didn't say that. I just heard him say that I'm gonna get a transplant in 6 months. Since nobody else heard it, it had to come from him. June 17th, 2023, Father's Day, I got a kidney transplant
Wow.
from an anonymous donor. Don't know who he was.
You know who
Don't
he was.
don't know his medical condition. I knew he was in California. Um, I'm at Walter Reed, where the president goes and gets all of his treatment. So I know I'm in a good place. And I'm going to dialysis. And the crazy thing is, I'm in the dialysis treatment center for 6 months. Every single day that I went into that dialysis treatment center, I prayed for everybody in there, not
Oh,
just for myself, everybody in there.
I
I
love how
saw,
grounded you have been
yeah,
in your
I,
faith.
I, I saw a couple of people in there get kidney transplants, you know, and because I was asking, what about that person? What about that person? These are people that had been in there for years. And I'm looking at them and I'm saying to myself, how in the heck did I get here? I'm hooked up to this machine. It's not natural because they're taking blood out, cleaning it, putting blood back in. And I'm like, this isn't natural. This isn't supposed to happen to me, not to me, you know. So I get the transplant on Father's Day, best Father's Day ever. So I always tell people now I have two birthdays, June 17th and August 17th, you know. So, I would say what it did for me and how it changed me, it strengthened my faith in areas where I was extremely weak.
Mm.
You don't have any other choice at that particular moment but to lean on God Himself. Because there is nothing else at that point. I sat days in and days out just in worship and in awe of everything that was happening. And the lady called and said, I have some good news and some bad news. Okay, I've been slammed with bad news. Let's get that out the way. You
Right,
know.
right.
So she says to me, I need you to get up to Walter Reed immediately. We have a kidney for you. I had to put her on hold, go upstairs, cry,
Mm.
come back downstairs, get myself together, and then I said, what's the bad news? She says, you got to cancel your Father's Day. And we were about to go out of town. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. She says, and you got to go back to the dialysis center and get another treatment. And I said, okay. So I had the transplant. They discharged me from the hospital 2 days later.
Wow.
I've been completely healthy ever since.
What a blessing. Thank you so much for sharing that. I know that
Yeah,
was very personal, and I know that
yeah,
you allowed yourself to be vulnerable and allow me to dig into that. But
yeah,
what a blessing. What a blessing. And you know how your faith guided you through both challenges and success, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, because at that time there is no, there is no, there's no income
Mm.
coming in. So being head of household, being a provider, it gave me a whole different perspective on who God is in our lives. It changed me completely. And I said to someone one day, you hear people talk about how the names of God and who he's known by, and he's known by Jehovah Rapha, he's known by Jehovah Jireh, and he's known by Jehovah Nisi. But Jessica, when you get an opportunity to know him personally on that level by those names, because I watched him carry me from pillar to post
Mm.
through that whole thing. No mortgage payments missed, no lights turned off, no meals missed, nothing. And not to mention that I had two daughters in college. I had I
Oh
had
my.
gotten I had put two daughters through college and had a daughter currently in college that graduated 2 years early.
Mm.
Yeah. And we paid the tuition and everything out of pocket.
Wow.
Yeah. With
Again,
no closings. No closings, and not to mention the coaching program that we were part of, my coaching platform was cut by three quarters. So the money was cut tremendously. So we had no other choice but to lean on God. And he carried us all the way through.
he absolutely does.
And the focus wasn't on the money, is what I'm saying. The focus was on trusting him, So that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Carlton, you had two. My mom, we've been told at least three times we were losing her, and that was one of them. You know, she had
Yeah.
cancer. We were told stage four, horrible, metastasized. She made it through. And she lost all her oxygen levels. Her oxygen
Yeah.
levels were extremely, this is a second time, like literally like maybe 15 years later. Oxygen levels really low. She had a beauty salon 50 years of her life and didn't realize
Yeah.
all those chemicals were destroying her.
Hmm.
And 20% of her heart was functioning when she got COVID.
Yeah.
The doctor specifically said, whatever you do, don't let her get COVID because
Yeah.
we were waiting for her to have surgery to be able to be strong enough to have surgery. So she's
Yeah.
walking around with a vest that will shock her if her oxygen levels went too low.
Hmm.
And sure enough, she's caring for her sister, going to visit her sister, who was only being seen by a caregiver.
Yeah.
Everyone else wasn't allowed to see her sister. Her sister was a completely healthy person. She just had dementia. She had
Yeah.
Alzheimer's. And so my mom would go feed her, be there. And we find out that her sister died in a day, like died of COVID. And they call me and they're like, your mom was here this week. And I'm like,
Oh wow.
are you kidding me? And so I get her tested. When I get that call, she's laying in my bed. I had her in my house and I get the results and I just start weeping. I'm like, wow, this is how, after all of this, after the cancer,
Yeah.
after everything.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I go in the room and she looks at me and she goes, what is it? And I said, Mama, we got to move you. And she was like, what? And I'm like, you got COVID. She goes, well, this is the way he chose.
Yeah.
She's like, this is the way he chose,
Yeah.
We sat down, she did her whole obituary, and I thought of you because you told me this, that you did
Yeah.
this with your family. So I get it. It was just what out of all things like this is, and guess what? Her doctor said it was a miracle.
Yeah. And I'm telling you, I am a walking, living, breathing miracle. I there is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. To go into that situation, into a dialysis center, and walk out of there. Now, the whole time I'm in dialysis, I'm driving myself. I think they took me maybe once or twice. But the whole orchestration of it was we were looking at dialysis centers and everything that Angela and I were trying to do was not in alignment with what God had. The dialysis center that we looked at, no. It was one right up the street. We didn't even know it. So literally 5 minutes away from the house.
By the
You
way,
know?
God bless your wife.
Yeah. And when I tell you that it changed the dynamics of our relationship, it to when you see that strength that someone else has for you, man, it changes everything. It changes your whole perspective on life. It's now no longer about me. It's about what can I do to make sure that they're good.
Yes.
Period.
And then you shifted. You went back into business.
Yeah.
I mean, you've built your career not just as an agent, but as a leader and as a coach. What
Hmm.
does it really take today to build a high performance business?
Well, I really think you have to show up. I really think you have to show up to a system when you don't feel like showing up to
Mhm.
it. You have to get up every single morning and you have to really press beyond the motivation. I always tell people all the time that motivation is fickle. Mental
Yes.
toughness is what's required. You can be motivated, it's 3:25. I can be motivated at 3:26 and don't feel like doing anything at 3:30.
Yeah.
So motivation comes and goes, but it's mental toughness. Within that,
Mental toughness.
within that mental toughness is where your structure lies. you know the structure, the foundation of everything that you strive to obtain, through coaching, through my brokerage, through my consulting business, now through the AI piece that we're incorporating into it. It's all really about servant leadership.
Yes.
That's what it's really about. It's really about servant leadership. It's about, am I doing this for, do I lead from a position to where I make my clients the priority, or do I lead from the position to where my clients become my priority?
Mm.
Meaning I put myself second. So it's like from a servant leadership position, am I am I last in line or am I first to serve?
Yes.
And I think that's what it really takes. It really takes professionals who struggle with consistency and they don't really understand what it means to really serve. Because we're in the service industry. We're in the
Yeah.
service industry.
You talk about that. You talk about the structure, you talk about the accountability, and then you talk about the systems. Why is it? Why is it that you think that so many professionals struggle to stay consistent in those areas?
Because it's a me personality first.
Mm.
They put themselves in front of the transaction. They put themselves in front of the client. They make themselves the priority instead of making the client the priority. And what I've learned is, if you make yourself second and you put service first, then God will bless you in everything else that you're doing.
100%.
When you start to look at leadership, the ultimate example of leadership was Jesus Christ himself, where he says in his word, I didn't come to be served, but I came to serve.
Right.
And a lot of professionals missed the boat on that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Agreed.
they missed the boat on that.
Now, let me ask you something about AI because you are also AI certified, and that's something
Hmm.
a lot of people are still trying to understand.
Yeah.
Where do you see agents and professionals getting it wrong when it comes to AI?
Well, that's a great question because I see it every day. I think I see it every day. I think where they really focus is on how do I utilize AI from a marketing perspective. They don't look at it from a system infrastructure
Mhm.
perspective. Most agents get it wrong because they treat it as if AI is either a toy or a treat, and it's neither. You know, AI should be viewed upon as a team member.
Yes.
You should look at it as a team member. It should be the tool that you use to fill the gaps within your infrastructure and within your systems to help you better prepare for what it is that you're striving to do. It's like any team member that you have, right? It has to be onboarded, it has to be directed, and it has to be held to a standard.
Yes.
And if you don't operate in it that way, and you just operate in it and say, okay, I want to use it to run emails, or I want to use it for marketing, or I want to use it for whatever the case may be, but you don't use it for what it's really intended to be used for. And I think a lot of agents get it wrong in that area. That's the whole piece I talked about with the shiny new object.
Yes.
You know, that's how they see it. They see it as a shiny new object. It's no different than when Facebook hit the scenes.
Yes.
They didn't use that properly, you know. And then when Facebook launched Instagram, they still don't use it properly. We just you're in a course talking about how to properly use YouTube. Look at how long YouTube has been around, but
Yes.
people are focusing on it from how can I use YouTube to enhance and grow me, not how can I use YouTube as an intricate part of my team building process, right?
So tell me, how can someone start using AI in a way that actually helps them grow without feeling overwhelmed?
I think they have to look at it from the standpoint of one, when you start talking about utilizing AI, you have to look at it first from this perspective. One, when I'm using AI, how am I using AI? Do I architect the prompt that I'm putting in to get the best possible result? Do I tell it to take on the persona of somebody that's far greater or somebody that's much more intelligent than they are to get a better result? When I
Yes.
start talking about architecting the prompt, do I tell it to act as, or do I put in front of whatever it is that I'm thinking? Do I put in front of it, rewrite or reword the following to give me a more effective result that I'm looking for? Then you have to move into the discovery phase of that because trash in, trash out,
Right.
right? So you want to make sure that from the discovery phase that you are giving it everything that it needs in order to get the results out of it that you're looking for. And then you have to analyze it because it will kick out to you the exactly what you put in there. And if you're not careful with it, most agents will take that and run with it and never read it,
Right.
you know, and then they'll publish it or do whatever they want to do with it. And then it comes across crazy. But then they also have to take advantage of the endless possibilities that it can do for you and your business. And then once you have all of that, then you got to be able to tie it together.
I
Once
also
you,
think too many people are trying to learn all different AIs at once instead of just
yeah,
focusing on one thing at a time.
yeah. I think if they really focused on, let's just say, for example, an AI agent and use the AI agent as a part of your infrastructure. So you can build your whole team with AI agents and be it be more cost effective, more cost efficient than what you're paying actual personnel. Now, I don't say that with the intent for people to get rid of their people,
Right.
you know, but I do say that from the standpoint to where you have to actually use AI and incorporate your people and integrate them together
Right.
so it works more effectively and efficiently. So
Everyone can work more effectively and efficiently.
yeah,
Your agents, your assistants, everyone.
yeah. So what I think it where they go wrong with it is they don't use it for a repeatable process for integrating AI into their business with really without becoming overwhelmed.
Right.
You know, my advice to a lot of people in regards to that is for anyone starting out, pick one workflow, like you said, instead of multiple.
Yes.
Automate the one, figure out what the pain points are in the one, and then build your confidence around that before you move on to something more complex.
Agreed.
You know, I
Agreed.
think AI should create margins for you in your life, meaning it's not a chore. It's something that frees you up to give you the opportunity to work in your strengths and not struggle in the areas where you're deficient.
Agreed. Agreed. Now tell me this, looking back at your journey, what was there a specific moment where everything just shifted for you?
Yes. What I can tell you is this: every real breakthrough I've ever experienced came from when I stopped trading time for transactions
Mm,
and started multiplying impact through other avenues. The shift was really from, I would say, being a coach and a consultant. That was probably more career moving for me than anything because I've always been that person that people have come to ask questions,
mhm.
and I was trying to figure out how do I take this skill set that I've developed and transition into something that I really enjoy. So it was an identity shift for me, becoming a man who builds up other people, becoming somebody that can be dependable, reliable. I think that was when the shift happened for me. Of course, the illness had a bigger impact on it also. The illness
Yeah.
had a big impact on it. But I think it was the breakthrough or that moment where when the specific moment, I would say probably when I discovered really that I wasn't really a follower of people, that I was built and designed to be a leader.
I love that. The old
I,
belief and then
yeah,
the new version
yeah,
of yourself,
yeah,
right?
yeah, 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 yeah. Because I had a lot of limiting beliefs.
Oh, yeah,
Growing
right.
up, the things that I experienced, I always wanted to be that guy that fit in with the crowd that everybody liked. Now I don't care if you like me or not. Because my objective now is to be 110% transparent with you in regards to everything that I have going on. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that's, when you start to see that you possess a certain skill set. I discovered I would say in my right around 26, 27, that I had a photographic memory.
Mm.
I had no idea of that before because I was focused on other things. I could remember what I wanted to remember, but when I could remember and recite paragraph after paragraph after paragraph, I's dotted, T's crossed, commas, and didn't need a spotter, you know, that's when I discovered that I was being groomed for something much bigger than what I was doing. That's why speaking publicly and things of that nature just come natural to me. So I I could probably do Martin's "I Have a Dream" speech if I wanted to. I've done lectures with 26, 30 pages straight, nonstop. And I think that was the paradigm shift when I was trying to figure out who I was going into leadership and getting out of being a follower, wanting to be liked, wanting to fit into the circle. And I saw people start to gravitate towards me. And I still think that I possess a lot of those same qualities where I can walk into a room and I can have that whole room shift if I want to, you know. Um,
Yes.
but I've also grown and matured to where I don't want that unless I have to demand it. I can command it at any point in time, but I think for the most part, Jessica, it was when I discovered who I was and what it was that I really wanted to do and be, and this is it right here.
By the way, a photographic memory to me is such a gift. With my son, one of my sons is autistic. When he was learning how to read, he
Yeah.
couldn't phonetically like sound something out. It was all photogenic memory. He would see the
Yeah.
sign, the word, and remember what it was when they told him what that said.
Mm-hmm.
So that was
Yeah.
very interesting to me. I was like, everybody learns so differently and everybody has a different gift. And how do you possibly remember every word, not because you're phonetically spelling it out, but because you
Right.
remember what it looks like? That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy, and that is something that you know you see it in certain individuals, and I can recall where I was watching this pastor on television, and I was looking at his gift, and I was looking at his deliverance, and I said to myself, "Huh, I could do that." I said, "I have that," and then I started thinking about other guys that I knew personally that had that. And I said, huh, they have that too. And then I started just watching them a little closely, you know, and my wife said, I don't even know how you do that,
Hmm. It's
you
a gift.
know.
It's a
And
true.
it's funny coming from a guy who had to go to summer school every single summer in order to graduate from high school.
Because you just didn't use your gift yet.
I didn't know I had it. I didn't know I had it, and now that I know that I have it, I lean on it sometimes when need be, but like I've said to someone once, I'm probably and I said this to him. I said, I'm probably the most profound speaker that you have in this room. I said, but you don't know that. And he said, prove it. I said, give me an opportunity. And he did. And then he was like, wow, you
I
know.
love that. I loved
Yeah.
when I saw you on stage, and I know
Yeah.
everybody in that room had so many takeaways. I
Yeah.
want you to speak to the person watching this right now. Maybe they're
Hmm.
feeling stuck, maybe they're feeling overwhelmed or unsure about their next step.
Yeah.
What would you say to that person?
I would say to that person is stop waiting for clarity before you take action. Stop waiting for clarity before you take action. Clarity comes through the moment, not before it. Most people are waiting for that feel good, I'm ready feeling. And ready is feeling that never really arrives. What you need to do is you need to stop doing and start moving.
Yes.
You need to stop saying, I'm going to, and just execute and do. You have to build, you cannot build your day around your mood. You just can't,
Absolutely not.
you just can't do that. What you need to do is just start building your day around your systems. And if you don't have systems, then you need to call me so I can help you implement some systems. Right.
Exactly.
So, but,
Exactly.
but 1 hour of discipline on focused activities will always outperform 5 hours of scattered effort. I always say that. If you take your time and commit to reading 30 minutes a day, every single day, you will be utterly surprised as to how your attention to detail and your work habit and your performance and your growth changes. You
It's
know,
funny that you said that because I pushed myself out of my comfort zone and I joined a book club this year. And it has been one
wow.
of the best things that I thought I was going to hate. And I was like, why am I doing this to myself? I love it. And I've been able to use so much of that in coaching and in life. And it's
Hmm.
amazing. So, yes, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, and finally, I would probably tell people to stop trying to build a career. Build something that's going to outlast you as the individual. Something that's going to outlast your motivation, something that's going to outlast the bad market, something that's going to outlast a hard season. Build a system, build a legacy, something that you can stand on.
Speaking of legacy, Carlton, when it's all said and done,
Mm.
what do you want to be remembered for?
Well,
What kind of
one,
impact do you want to leave behind?
I heard someone say one time before that most people only remember maybe one or two generations beyond them. That's their children and their grandchildren. And if they're fortunate enough to have great grandchildren, the great grandchildren are probably too young to remember them anyway. So it's a lingering story that's out there. I want to be remembered as a man who showed up for people,
Yeah.
who presented, unwavering faith,
Mm,
who was a man of God that operated from structure and purpose and worked those things together. Someone who was devoted, to his family, someone who was devoted, to his community, someone who was devoted to uplifting the next generation. I think all of that points to one thing, that I really want people to build something that will outlast what it is that I'm building. I want my efforts, my energies, the things that I'm doing right now today to be looked upon and said, man, if that guy could do this, of course I can do that.
mm.
So I don't want my name to fade after two generations. And I don't want to be remembered by some engraving on a building. I want to be remembered for my integrity. I want to be remembered for my honesty. I want to be remembered for my commitment to God. I want to be remembered as the guy who, if you needed him, that you could count on him being there for you.
I love that. I
And
love
and
that.
that's basically why I am. It's the vision, it's the vision behind the name of my company, which is I Triumph. It's the I Triumph vision. It's the legacy. People
Yeah.
who triumph become people that you can count on, people
Yeah.
that you can depend on. That's why the name of the company is I Triumph Enterprises.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, this conversation definitely wasn't just about real estate. It was about resilience, about faith, about
Hmm.
leadership and purpose. Carlton, I just want to thank you so much for your time, for your transparency, and
Yeah.
everything that you shared today. I truly appreciate you. You know,
Jessica,
I've been
I
asking.
love you to death. You know that. So whenever you want to have me back, you're going to have to allow me to return the favor and have you come on to my podcast as well
Absolutely.
so we can
But
talk
you know,
about
I'm
it
going to
and
ask
move
you
forward.
one last question, right?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Who do you have to continue becoming to fulfill everything you know you're called to be?
I have to continue to improve in the area where I feel I struggle the most, and that is with surrender. My word for 2026, for myself internally, personally, is surrender. I've always struggled with commitment.
Mm.
I've always struggled with commitment, but I did not discover the reason why I struggled with commitment until the latter part of December of last year when the Lord said to me, there's absolutely no way that you can commit to me without surrendering.
Yes.
And because we as individuals, we have so many flaws and we wear so many masks, and you have to get to a point to where you have to be able to surrender who you are and allow him to be uh, you have to surrender who you are and allow yourself to be who he created you to be. And I'll leave you with this. Luke 9:23 says, then pick up your cross and deny yourself daily. That is probably the biggest task that we have. And that's the one thing that I'm trying to do every single day to be a better person and a better man is to deny myself, pick up my cross, and follow Christ.
Yes. And it's interesting to me that you even use that word surrender. I've used it so much in my prayers lately.
Yeah.
It's been mentioned in service, and I have literally written so much. I write to God. My diaries are to God,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
I've written so much about surrendering lately.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
I
never
think
used to do that before, but that's something just recently that
yeah.
came up in service, and I'm like, this is so true. I have
Yeah.
to surrender.
You have to surrender because the one thing, and I know we got to go, but the one thing that I'll say to you is The biggest issue that we have as individuals, regardless of what our makeup is, what our background looks like, what it is that we do every single morning, the biggest issue that we have that he's given to us is called free will.
Hmm.
It's called free will, and we have to be able to surrender our free will and make the right decisions in order for us to be every single thing that we were created to be. Because God's word says that we were created in the likeness of his image. So if that's who we are made like, then why don't we operate that way? And that's what I'm trying to do. Not to say that I'm perfect, but I put forth the effort every
I
single
love it.
day.
I
Yeah.
love it. Thank you so much. Well, for those watching, if there's one thing I hope you took away from today's conversations, it's this. No matter what you've been through, no matter what season you're in, you still have purpose and there is still more in you. Growth doesn't come from comfort, it comes from the moments that challenge you, stretch you, and change you. So, if today's conversation resonated with you, if something in this interview spoke to you, I invite you to subscribe, drop a comment below, and share this with someone you know may need to hear this message today. And if you're ready to take your life and your business to the next level, don't just watch, apply. I'm Jessica Rojas, and this was Real Talk on the Red Chair.